The signal came at 0347 hours on a cold Tuesday morning. It arrived at Terran Command Station Omega like a whisper from the dark corners of space. The automated systems picked it up first, translating the alien language into broken English that scrolled across the main display screen. Commander Jake Harrison was already awake when the alert sounded. He had been sitting in his quarters, unable to sleep, staring out at the endless stars through his small window. Something had been bothering him for days. A feeling he could not explain. A sense that something bad was coming. He walked onto the bridge of the station with heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. The night crew snapped to attention as he entered, but he waved them down with a tired hand. "What do we have?" he asked. Lieutenant Megan Taylor turned from her console. She was young, maybe 28, with sharp eyes and brown hair pulled back tight. She had been with the station for 3 years, and Jake trusted her completely. "Distress signal, sir," she said. "Coming from the Vega system. A civilian transport vessel says they have engine failure. They are asking for help." Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the holographic display. It showed a small dot blinking in the darkness, far from any planet or station. The ship was alone out there, floating in the cold void. "What kind of ship?" he asked. "Corellian registry, sir. The ship is called the Gentle Star. Crew of 42, all civilians, mostly families according to their manifest." Jake frowned at this news. The Corellians were a strange species. They looked somewhat like tall insects, with 4 arms and large dark eyes. Humanity had met them twice before, and both times had been tense. The Corellians did not like outsiders. They kept to themselves and rarely asked anyone for anything. "Since when do Corellians ask humans for help?" said a voice from behind. Jake turned to see Ensign Chris Parker standing at the navigation console. He was a young man with red hair and freckles, fresh out of the academy. Smart kid, but sometimes he spoke without thinking. "Since now, apparently," Jake replied. He stood there for a long moment, thinking. The signal seemed real enough. The codes checked out. The ship was exactly where it claimed to be. But something felt wrong, like looking at a picture that was almost perfect, but had one small detail out of place. "Run a full diagnostic on that signal," Jake ordered. "I want to know everything about it. Where it came from, how long it has been broadcasting, everything." Megan nodded and turned back to her console. Her fingers flew across the controls as she pulled up data streams and analysis programs. Jake walked to the communications station where a young woman named Amy Ross was working. She looked up at him with tired eyes. "Get me Admiral Katie Monroe," he said. "Priority channel. She needs to know about this." The Admiral answered within 5 minutes. Her face appeared on the screen, weathered and stern. She was in her 60s, but still sharp as a blade. She had fought in 3 wars and commanded the entire Terran defense fleet for the past decade. "What is it, Harrison?" she asked without any greeting. Jake explained the situation quickly and clearly. He told her about the distress signal, the Corellian ship, and his concerns. The Admiral listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Your instincts have saved lives before," she said finally. "What are they telling you now?" "That this could be a trap, Admiral. But if it is not, there are 42 people out there who will die without our help." Admiral Monroe nodded slowly. "Then we send ships, but we send them ready for trouble. I am giving you command of this operation, Harrison. Take a small fleet. Render aid if aid is needed. But if this is a trap, you have full authority to respond with force." "Understood, Admiral." The connection closed, and Jake turned to face his bridge crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. "Megan, contact the USS Valiant, the medical frigate Mercy Dawn, and the support cruiser Steadfast Hope. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure. I want all ships ready to jump within the hour." "Yes, sir," Megan said. Jake walked back to the center of the bridge. He looked at the blinking dot on the display one more time. Somewhere out there, people were waiting for help. Real or not, he had to know. The next hour passed quickly. Jake gathered his gear and boarded a shuttle to the USS Valiant, a destroyer-class warship that would serve as the flagship for this mission. The ship was sleek and powerful, armed with the latest weapons humanity had developed. Captain Ryan Torres of the Steadfast Hope checked in via communication channel. He was a large man with a thick beard and a booming voice. "What are we walking into, Commander?" he asked. "I wish I knew," Jake replied honestly. "Stay sharp and be ready for anything." The medical frigate Mercy Dawn was commanded by a woman named Patricia Young. She had served as a combat medic before becoming a captain, and she knew how quickly a rescue mission could turn into a battlefield. "My medical teams are standing by," she reported. "Whatever we find out there, we will be ready to help." Jake nodded at her image on the screen. "Good. Let us hope they are needed for healing and nothing else." Dr. Laura Bennett was aboard the Mercy Dawn as well. She was the lead medical officer for the mission, a skilled doctor who had saved hundreds of lives over her career. Jake knew her personally. She had treated his injuries after a border skirmish 3 years ago. When all 3 ships reported ready, Jake gave the order. "All ships, jump to the Vega system. Stay in formation and keep your weapons hot but not active. We are going there to help people, not start a war." The stars stretched and blurred as the ships entered hyperspace. The journey would take about 6 hours. Jake used that time to study everything he could about the Corellians and the region of space where the distressed ship was located. Megan joined him in the ready room after a few hours. She had a tablet in her hands and a worried look on her face. "I found something strange, Commander," she said. "What is it?" "The Vega system. It is located near Draxari territory." Jake felt his stomach drop. The Draxari were not a species anyone wanted to deal with. They were pirates and slavers, criminals who raided ships and colonies throughout the outer territories. They were known for their cruelty and their complete lack of mercy. The Vega system was silent when the human fleet arrived. The 3 ships emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, their sensors immediately scanning the area for any sign of life or danger. Jake stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, his hands clasped behind his back. The main view screen showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. The 4th planet hung in the darkness like a pale blue marble, its rings casting long shadows across the void. "Report," Jake said. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Cruz worked at the tactical station. He was a serious man with dark hair and a calm voice that never seemed to change no matter what was happening around him. "I have located the distressed vessel, Commander. It is exactly where the signal said it would be, drifting near the asteroid belt around the 4th planet. Power signatures are minimal. Life support is barely working. Life signs? Approximately 40 life forms aboard. They are weak, but alive." Jake felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. Maybe this was not a trap after all. Maybe it was just a simple rescue mission and his instincts had been wrong. "Launch a medical shuttle," he ordered. "Have Dr. Bennett lead the team. I want security officers on board as well, just in case." The shuttle bay doors opened, and a small craft emerged from the Valiant. It carried 12 people, 6 medical personnel, and 6 security officers armed with pulse rifles. Dr. Laura Bennett was at the front of the group, her medical kit already open and ready. Jake watched the shuttle cross the distance between the ships. It moved slowly, carefully, its pilot following standard rescue protocols. Then everything changed. Megan was the first to see it. She gasped and pointed at her screen, her face going pale. "Commander, I am picking up multiple contacts. They are coming from behind the planetary rings. 12 ships. No, 18. They are powering weapons." Alarms began to blare across the bridge. Red lights flashed on every console. The tactical display suddenly filled with hostile signatures, each one marked with the jagged symbol that Jake recognized immediately. "Draxari," Daniel said, his calm voice finally showing a hint of fear. The enemy ships were ugly things. They looked like they had been built from scrap metal and hatred, their hulls covered in sharp armor plates and weapon turrets. Each one was smaller than the Valiant, but together they outnumbered the human fleet 6-1. "It was a trap," Jake said quietly. "The whole thing was a trap." He did not have time to feel angry. He did not have time to feel afraid. He only had time to act. "All hands, battle stations," he shouted. "Signal the Steadfast Hope and Mercy Dawn to fall back to defensive positions. Get that shuttle back here right now." But the Draxari were faster. The lead enemy ship turned toward the medical shuttle and opened fire. Its plasma cannons lit up the darkness with streaks of green fire. The shuttle tried to evade, but it was too slow, too small, too fragile. Jake watched in horror as the shots tore through the shuttle's shields like they were made of paper. The small craft exploded in a brilliant flash of light that lasted only a second before fading into nothing. 12 people. Gone, just like that. Laura Bennett, who had saved his life 3 years ago. Gone. The bridge was silent except for the alarms. Everyone stared at the view screen where the shuttle had been moments before. There was nothing left now. Not even debris. Megan made a small sound. It might have been a sob. She and Laura had been friends since the academy. Jake forced himself to breathe. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, but he pushed the emotion down deep where it could not interfere with what needed to be done. "They want us angry," Daniel said quietly. "They killed the shuttle to make us lose control, to make us charge in without thinking." "Then they do not know humans very well," Jake replied. His voice was cold now, cold as the space outside. He turned to face his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for guidance. "Listen to me," he said. "We just lost 12 good people, 12 of our own. That cannot be undone, but we can make sure their deaths mean something. We can make sure these pirates never do this to anyone else again." He walked to the tactical console and looked at the display. The Draxari fleet was approaching in a loose formation, confident in their numbers. "They think they have won," Jake continued. "They think we are going to panic and run, or charge in blindly and get ourselves killed. We are going to do neither." He pointed at the enemy flagship, the largest of the Draxari vessels. "That is their command ship. The leader of this attack is on that vessel. He gave the order to destroy our shuttle. He is going to die first." Nathan Cole, the weapons officer, looked up from his console. He was a big man with calloused hands, a veteran of a dozen battles. "All weapons charged and ready, Commander. Just say the word." Jake nodded slowly. He opened a channel to the other ships. "Steadfast Hope, Mercy Dawn, this is Commander Harrison. We have lost our medical shuttle and all hands aboard. The enemy has revealed their true numbers, 18 vessels, mostly light raiders with 1 command ship." Captain Torres responded immediately. "Orders, Commander? We are going to make them regret this day. Execute Maneuver Omega-7 on my mark. Target the command ship first. Once it falls, the rest will scatter." "Understood," Torres said. "Steadfast Hope standing by." Captain Young of the Mercy Dawn came on the channel next. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. "Laura was a good doctor and a better friend. These animals are going to pay for what they did." "They will," Jake promised. "All ships, break formation on my mark. Make them think we are running. Then turn and hit them with everything we have." He waited as the Draxari fleet moved closer. The enemy commander was probably laughing right now, thinking the humans were scared and confused. He was about to learn the truth. "Mark," Jake said. The 3 human ships scattered in different directions. To the Draxari, it looked like a panicked retreat. The enemy fleet gave chase, spreading out to pursue each vessel. That was their mistake. On the bridge of the lead Draxari ship, a scarred commander named Krath watched the humans flee with a smile on his face. He had done this many times before. Lure ships with fake distress signals. Ambush them when they arrive. Kill or capture everyone aboard. Humans were soft, he thought. Emotional. They came running whenever someone called for help. It made them easy targets. Chase them down, he ordered his fleet. Kill the fighters. Capture the medical ship. They will have supplies and medicine we can sell. His crew cheered and the ships accelerated after the retreating humans. Krath did not notice that the human ships were not running away randomly. They were moving to specific positions, forming a triangle around his fleet. He did not notice until it was too late. "Commander," one of his officers said suddenly, "the human ships have stopped running. They are turning back." Krath frowned. "What?" The battle became chaos in seconds. The Draxari fleet had expected an easy victory. They had expected frightened prey running in every direction. What they got instead was a coordinated attack that tore through their ranks like a storm through dry leaves. Jake stood at the center of the Valiant's bridge, calling out orders with a calm voice that never wavered. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. Every person knew their job. Every person did it without hesitation. "Steadfast Hope, take out the 2 raiders on your left flank," Jake commanded. "Mercy Dawn, fall back and provide covering fire. Valiant will push through the center." Captain Torres responded instantly. "On it, Commander." The Steadfast Hope turned hard and brought its main guns to bear on the enemy. 2 Draxari raiders tried to escape, but they were too slow. The human ship's cannons roared, and both raiders exploded in twin balls of fire. Across the battlefield, the Draxari were starting to realize they had made a terrible mistake. Their commander was dead, their flagship was destroyed, and the humans they had thought would be easy prey were tearing them apart. A Draxari captain named Vex screamed orders at his crew. "Focus fire on the big one! If we can take down their leader, the others will run!" 3 raider ships turned toward the Valiant, their weapons charging for a combined strike. It was a good plan. Against most enemies, it might have worked, but humans were not most enemies. "Incoming fire, Commander," Daniel reported from the tactical station. 3 ships bearing 175. Jake did not even blink. "Evasive pattern Delta. Nathan, target the middle ship." The Valiant rolled to the left, just as the enemy plasma bolts screamed past. One shot grazed their shields, but it did no real damage. A moment later, Nathan returned fire. The tungsten round crossed the distance in less than a second. It punched through the middle raider's shields and continued straight through the ship itself, exiting out the other side. The vessel split in half and drifted apart, its crew dead before they could even scream. The other 2 raiders broke off their attack and tried to flee. "Do not let them escape," Jake said quietly. The Valiant pursued, its engines burning hot. Nathan fired again and again. Both raiders died within 30 seconds of each other. On the Steadfast Hope, Captain Torres was having problems of his own. 2 Draxari ships had managed to get behind him and were pounding his rear shields. "Shields at 60%, his first officer Samantha Hayes reported. "They are trying to take out our engines." Torres gritted his teeth and spun his ship around. The move was risky. It exposed his damaged stern to more fire, but it also brought his main guns to bear on the attackers. "Fire everything," Torres ordered. The Steadfast Hope unleashed a devastating barrage. The first raider was hit by 4 rounds in quick succession and simply ceased to exist. The second took a glancing blow and tried to retreat, its hull on fire and its engines failing. "Finish it," Torres said. A final shot ended the crippled raider's struggle. Meanwhile, the Mercy Dawn was proving that even a medical ship could fight when necessary. Captain Young had positioned her vessel behind an asteroid, using it for cover while her gunners picked off any raider that came too close. "Another one down," her weapons officer reported. That makes 4. Good, Young replied. Her eyes were hard, her jaw set tight. Every shot was for Laura Bennett. Every kill was justice for the 12 people who had died in that shuttle. Back on the Valiant, Jake surveyed the battlefield. The fight had been going on for less than 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. The space around them was filled with debris and burning wreckage. Of the 18 Draxari ships that had sprung the trap, only 7 remained, and those 7 were running. They are retreating, Megan said. She did not sound happy about it. She sounded angry. Jake understood exactly how she felt. These pirates had killed their friends. They had used innocent Corellians as bait. They deserved no mercy. But Jake also knew that rage could lead to mistakes, and mistakes in battle got people killed. Let them go for now, he said. We need to check on the Corellian ship. There might still be survivors. The words tasted bitter in his mouth. Every part of him wanted to chase down those fleeing raiders and destroy them. But duty came first, always. The 3 human ships regrouped and approached the drifting Corellian transport. It hung silently in space, its lights flickering weakly. Jake ordered a security team to board and investigate. 20 minutes later, the team leader reported back. His voice was heavy with sadness. Commander, there are no survivors. The Corellians are dead, all 42 of them. Jake closed his eyes. How? Shot execution style. Looks like it happened right before we arrived. The Draxari must have killed them when they saw us coming out of hyperspace. A cold fury settled over Jake. Those people had been prisoners, innocent civilians used as bait in a cruel trap. And when the trap was sprung, the Draxari had murdered them like they were nothing. Commander, Daniel said softly. He had been working at his console, analyzing data recovered from the destroyed enemy ships. I have been looking at their communication logs. The Draxari have a base, a main station where all their ships return to. It is hidden in an uncharted system about 3 light years from here. Jake opened his eyes. Show me. Daniel transferred the data to the main screen. It showed a debris field orbiting a dead star with a large asteroid at its center. The asteroid had been hollowed out and turned into a station. It was home to thousands of Draxari pirates and criminals. It was also home to hundreds of slaves taken from ships and colonies across the sector. If we attack that base, we can end the Draxari threat completely, Daniel said. But it will not be easy. They will have defenses, probably more ships. Jake stared at the image for a long moment. Then he turned to Megan. Contact Admiral Monroe. Tell her what happened here. Tell her about the Corellian prisoners and the Draxari base. Ask for permission to continue the mission. Megan nodded and moved to the communication station. While they waited for a response, Jake walked slowly around the bridge. His crew watched him silently. They all knew what he was thinking. They all felt the same way. The Draxari had started this fight, but humans would finish it. Admiral Monroe's response came within the hour. Her face appeared on the screen, her expression grim. I have reviewed your report, Commander. 42 civilian prisoners executed in cold blood, 12 of our own killed in an ambush. This cannot stand. What are your orders, Admiral? Jake asked. You are authorized to neutralize the Draxari threat. Whatever it takes. Find their base and destroy it. Make sure they can never do this to anyone again. Understood, Admiral. We will not let you down. The connection closed. Jake turned to face his crew. The journey to the Draxari base took 4 hours. 4 hours of silence and preparation. 4 hours for the crew to think about what had happened and what was about to happen. Jake spent most of that time in the ready room, studying the enemy's defenses and planning the attack. The Draxari had built their station inside a massive asteroid, using the rock itself as armor. They had weapons platforms around it and probably patrol ships as well. It would not be an easy fight, but Jake was not looking for easy. He was looking for justice. Daniel knocked on the door and entered with a tablet in his hands. His face was troubled. "Commander, I have finished analyzing the Draxari communication logs. There is something you need to know." Jake gestured for him to continue. "The Corellian transport was captured 2 weeks ago. The Draxari used the crew to record the distress signal. They forced them to call for help knowing that someone would come. And then they killed them when we arrived," Jake said bitterly. "Yes, sir, but there is more." Daniel paused as if the next words were difficult to say. "This is not the first time they have done this. According to their records, the Draxari have used this tactic dozens of times over the past 5 years. They have killed or enslaved hundreds of people from at least 12 different species." Jake felt sick. All those innocent lives destroyed because someone wanted easy targets. All those families torn apart because the Draxari were too cowardly to fight fair. "Is there anything else?" he asked. Daniel nodded slowly. "The base has over 3,000 Draxari living on it, but it also holds approximately 200 slaves from various species, prisoners taken from ships like the Corellian transport." This changed things. Jake had been prepared to simply destroy the base and everyone on it. But 200 innocent people complicated matters. "Can we get the slaves out before we attack?" "I do not know, sir. It depends on where they are held and how heavily the station is defended." Jake stood up and walked to the window. The stars were still streaking past as the ship moved through hyperspace. Somewhere ahead, 200 people were waiting in darkness, not knowing if rescue would ever come. "We will try," Jake said finally. "We will try to save them. But if it comes down to a choice between saving the slaves and destroying the Draxari die. We cannot let them continue doing this." Daniel nodded. "Understood, Commander." They emerged from hyperspace on the edge of the Draxari system. The dead star at its center gave off only a faint red glow, barely enough light to see by. The debris field stretched out before them, a graveyard of ancient rocks and forgotten ships. And there, at the center of it all, was the enemy base. It was bigger than Jake had expected. The asteroid had been hollowed out completely, its interior transformed into a maze of corridors and chambers. Lights flickered on its surface, and ships moved around it like flies around a corpse. "I count 5 patrol vessels," Daniel reported. "All smaller than the raiders we fought before. They do not appear to have detected us yet." Jake nodded. "Megan, what about the station's defenses?" 10 weapons platforms spread around the perimeter. Basic plasma cannons, nothing too advanced. But the asteroid itself provides excellent cover. Any direct attack will have to deal with that rock. Captain Torres came on the communication channel. "Commander, we are in position, ready to execute on your order." "Same here," Captain Young added from the Mercy Dawn. "What is the plan?" Jake had been thinking about this during the entire journey. The standard approach would be to send in fighters to clear the patrol ships, then use the main guns to destroy the weapons platforms. Once the defenses were down, they could bombard the station at their leisure. But that approach would not save the slaves. "We are going to try something different," Jake said. "Torres, I want you to take the Steadfast Hope and draw the patrol ships away from the station. Make them chase you into the debris field where you will have room to maneuver." "Understood. And then?" "Once the patrols are gone, the Valiant will move in close and disable the weapons platforms. While that is happening, the Mercy Dawn will approach from the far side and look for a way to reach the slave quarters." Captain Young spoke up. "You want us to board the station?" "If possible. There are 200 innocent people in there. If we can get them out before we destroy the base, I want to do it." There was silence on the channel for a moment. Then Torres laughed, a short, harsh sound. "Leave it to humans to try and save everyone, even in the middle of a war. All right, Commander, let us do this." The operation began. The Steadfast Hope moved forward, its engines blazing, deliberately making itself visible to the Draxari patrols. The enemy ships spotted it immediately and gave chase, just as Jake had predicted. Pirates were greedy. They could not resist the chance to capture a prize. Torres led them deep into the debris field, weaving between asteroids and wreckage. One by one, the patrol ships followed, leaving the station increasingly undefended. "First patrol is in position," Torres reported. "Engaging now." The sounds of battle echoed over the communication channel. Energy weapons fired, metal screamed as ships were torn apart. Within minutes, Torres had destroyed 3 of the 5 patrols. "The last 2 are running back to base," he said. "Want me to chase them?" "Negative. Let them go. Their warning will keep the station's attention focused on you while we move in." The Valiant advanced toward the station, using the asteroids for cover. Jake watched the enemy weapons platforms grow larger on the view screen. They were ugly things, squat towers with rotating turrets on top. Each one could fire in any direction. But they had a weakness. Their targeting systems were slow, designed to track large, slow-moving targets. A fast ship making unpredictable moves could get close before they could respond. "Nathan, target the nearest platform," Jake ordered. "Fire on my mark." The Valiant burst from cover and accelerated toward the station. The weapons platforms began to turn, their targeting lasers seeking the human ship. But they were too slow. "Fire," Jake said. The first platform exploded, then the second, then the third. Jake kept the ship moving, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to get a clear shot. On the far side of the station, the Mercy Dawn was approaching carefully. Captain Young had found what looked like a docking bay, its doors open and unguarded. "I am going in," she reported. "Security teams are ready." "Be careful," Jake replied. "Get those people out and get back to your ship. We cannot hold off the station's defenses forever." The Mercy Dawn docked, and her security teams poured into the station. They moved quickly through dark corridors, following the map Daniel had extracted from the Draxari communications. The slave quarters were in the lower levels, behind heavy doors meant to keep the prisoners from escaping. Lieutenant Kevin Park led the rescue team. He was a young man with steady hands and a calm voice, exactly the kind of person you wanted in a crisis. "We are at the doors," he reported. "I can hear people inside. Going in now." The doors opened and the security team entered. What they found inside would haunt them for years. 200 people crammed into a space meant for 50. Men, women, and children from a dozen different species. They were thin, dirty, and terrified. Some of them screamed when they saw the humans, thinking they were Duty Moore captors. The Valiant shook as enemy fire slammed into its shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Damage reports came in from every section of the ship, but Jake refused to retreat. "Shields at 40%, Daniel reported. "We cannot take much more of this." "The Mercy Dawn needs more time," Jake replied through gritted teeth. "We hold." On the station, the rescue was turning into chaos. The freed prisoners were weak and frightened. Many could barely walk. The security teams were doing their best to help them, but progress was slow. Lieutenant Kevin Park carried a small child in his arms while guiding a group of prisoners through the corridors. The child was from a species he did not recognize, with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. She could not have been more than 5 years old. "Almost there," he told them. "Just a little further." Behind them, Draxari guards were finally responding to the alarm. Plasma bolts scorched the walls as the security team returned fire. 2 of Kevin's people fell, wounded but alive. "Keep moving," Kevin ordered. "We are not stopping now." They reached the docking bay just as the last group of prisoners was being loaded onto the Mercy Dawn. Captain Young was at the entrance, waving people in. "Get aboard!" she shouted. "Everyone aboard now!" The final prisoners scrambled onto the ship. Kevin handed the child to a medical officer and turned to help his wounded team members. Within minutes, everyone was aboard. "Mercy Dawn to Commander Harrison," Young reported. "We have the prisoners." All 203 of them. We are ready to depart. Jake allowed himself a brief moment of relief. Get out of there, Captain. Get those people to safety. The Mercy Dawn undocked and began pulling away from the station. The Draxari tried to stop it, but the Steadfast Hope moved in to provide cover. Torres's guns blazed, cutting down any enemy ship that got too close. Now it was time to finish this. All ships, fall back to safe distance, Jake ordered. We are going to destroy that station. The human fleet retreated beyond the debris field, putting safe distance between themselves and the Draxari base. The enemy ships tried to pursue, but they were too few and too damaged to pose a real threat. A transmission came through on all frequencies, a Draxari voice, trembling with fear. Human Commander, we surrender. Please. No more fighting. We give up. We will release our prisoners. We will stop our attacks. Just do not destroy us. Jake stood in the center of the bridge, his face lit by the glow of the view screen. The Draxari station filled the display, its lights flickering in the darkness. He thought about Laura Bennett and the 11 others who died in that shuttle. He thought about the 42 Corellian prisoners executed in cold blood. He thought about the 200 people they had just rescued, and the hundreds more who had not been so lucky over the years. The Draxari were begging for mercy, the same mercy they had never shown their victims. This is Commander Jake Harrison of the Terran Defense Fleet, he said, his voice broadcast across every frequency in the system. You sent a distress signal to lure innocent people into a trap. You murdered civilians. You enslaved men, women, and children. You showed no mercy to any of them. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Neither will we. He turned to Nathan. Target the station's reactor. Fire. Nathan hesitated for only a second. Then he pressed the firing button. The tungsten rounds crossed the void and slammed into the asteroid base. They punched through rock and metal, deep into the heart of the station. The first round cracked the reactor's containment. The second ruptured it completely. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the asteroid began to glow from within. Light spilled from cracks in its surface. The station's atmosphere vented into space. And then, with a final blinding flash, the entire structure exploded. The shock waves spread across the debris field, pushing rocks and wreckage in all directions. When it finally cleared, nothing remained of the Draxari base but dust and scattered fragments. 3,000 pirates, erased from existence. The bridge was silent. Jake stared at the view screen where the station had been. He felt no triumph, no joy, just a cold satisfaction that justice had been done. Commander, Megan said softly, we are receiving transmissions from the surviving Draxari ships. They are requesting permission to surrender. Jake considered this for a moment. These were the remnants of the patrol fleet, the crews who had not been on the station when it was destroyed. They had nowhere to go now, no base to return to, no organization to support them. Accept their surrender, he said finally. Put them in the brig. They will face trial for their crimes. It was over. The journey back to Terran space took several days. The Mercy Dawn flew slowly, its medical bays overflowing with rescued prisoners. Most of them were malnourished and traumatized, but they were alive. That was what mattered. Jake visited them when he could. He spoke to survivors from a dozen different species, each with their own story of capture and suffering. An elderly Corellian woman grabbed his hand and thanked him in a language he did not understand, tears streaming down her face. You came for us, she said through a translator. We had given up hope. But you came. Jake did not know what to say, so he just nodded and moved on. When the fleet finally reached Terran Command Station Omega, Admiral Monroe was waiting for them. She boarded the Valiant personally to review Jake's report. You destroyed their base, killed their leader, and rescued over 200 prisoners, she said when he finished. I would say that qualifies as a successful mission. It does not feel like success, Admiral. We lost 12 good people. and the Corellian prisoners died before we could reach them. Monroe nodded slowly. War always has costs, Commander. The question is whether those costs are worth the outcome. In this case, I believe they were. The Draxari will never threaten another ship, never capture another prisoner, never murder another innocent person. That matters. Jake knew she was right, but it did not make the losses hurt any less. In the weeks that followed, word spread across the galaxy. The Draxari were gone, their organization destroyed completely. Other pirate groups heard the story and quietly disbanded. Some fled to the furthest edges of known space, hoping to escape notice. A new understanding took hold among the species of the galaxy. Humans were generous and kind. They came running whenever someone needed help. They offered aid without asking for anything in return. But there was another side to humanity. A side that emerged when their kindness was exploited. A side that showed no mercy to those who preyed on the innocent. Jake returned to his normal duties at the station. He processed reports, coordinated patrols, and trained new officers. Life went on, as it always did. But sometimes, late at night, he would stand at the window of his quarters and stare out at the stars. He would think about the people they had saved and the people they had lost. He would remember the flash of light when the shuttle exploded and the look on Megan's face when she heard the news. He would remember the Draxari commander, begging for mercy in those final moments. And he would remember his answer. Neither will we. The universe had learned an important lesson that day. Humanity would always answer a distress signal. They would always try to help those in need. It was in their nature, written into their very souls. But God help anyone who used that kindness as a weapon. Because the next signal they would hear would be the sound of human guns, and the last thing they would see would be a human fleet coming out of hyperspace. Coming to finish what they started. Coming to collect what was owed. The story spread from station to station, from world to world. It became a warning and a promise, whispered in dark corners and bright halls alike. Never fake a distress signal to a human fleet, because humans never forget, and they never forgive. The end. It is okay, Kevin said, holding up his empty hands. We are here to rescue you. We are going to get you out of here. It took precious minutes to convince the prisoners that this was real. That rescue had finally come. But eventually, they started moving, following the security teams back toward the Mercy Dawn. Outside, Jake was running out of time. He had destroyed 8 of the 10 weapons platforms, but more Draxari ships were launching from the station. The returning patrol ships had also arrived and were joining the fight. "Commander, we are being overwhelmed," Daniel said. "We need to pull back or make our attack now." Jake looked at the screen. The Mercy Dawn was still docked. The rescue was not complete. "Hold the line," he ordered. "Give them more time." "You heard the Admiral. We have a job to finish. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump. Next stop is the Draxari home base." As the fleet prepared to move, Megan approached Jake quietly. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Commander, I want to thank you for not letting them get away." Jake placed a hand on her shoulder. "We take care of our own, Lieutenant. Laura's death will not be in vain. I promise you that." The stars blurred as the human fleet jumped into hyperspace. Ahead of them, hidden in the darkness, the Draxari waited in ignorance. They did not know that death was coming for them. They would learn soon enough. Before he could say another word, the USS Valiant opened fire. Human ships did not use plasma weapons like most other species. They used kinetic accelerators, weapons that launched heavy tungsten projectiles at incredible speeds. A single shot from these guns hit harder than a dozen plasma bolts. The first round struck Kraft's ship and overloaded its shields instantly. The second tore through the hull and destroyed the engine room. The third hit the bridge. Kraft had just enough time to feel fear before everything went dark. On the Valiant, Jake watched the enemy command ship break apart. "Target destroyed," Nathan reported. "Good," Jake said. "Now let us finish this." "How near?" Jake asked. "Close enough that a Draxari patrol could reach the location within hours." Jake sat back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. The bad feeling he had been carrying all week suddenly made perfect sense. "Increase our alert status," he said quietly, "and have all weapon systems fully charged before we arrive. I think we are going to need them." Megan nodded and left to carry out his orders. Jake remained alone in the ready room, watching the stars streak past the window. Somewhere ahead, danger was waiting. He could feel it in his bones. He just hoped his crew was ready for whatever they were about to face.